2023 had a historic tight end class. Can 2024 live up to the billing? Let's find out now.
Let's go.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Dynasty After Dark. We're your hosts, Calvin Timms and Dale Terry, and we're finishing up our initial early rookie rankings for the tight end position. And after this, we've gone through all of the positions. So make sure you've checked out the other positions. If you haven't gone and listened to them yet, you can hear our thoughts on these rookies and, Caleb Williams, Drake May, the other guys at the top. You can hear our thoughts on all the running backs, the wide receivers, and really let us know what you guys like or dislike about our rankings. But today is going to be the tight ends. And last year, like I said in the intro, was a historic tight end rookie class. Sam Laporta finished as the number one overall tight end on the season, which is not supposed to happen. This is what we wanted Kyle Pitts to be, right? And, it was not Kyle Pitts 3 years later, but Sam Laporta did it. Dalton Kincaid looked really, really good at points in time. And, Michael Mayer didn't exist, but, those two right there just set the tone for the tight end position. And if you look at tight ends as a whole, right, the position as a whole, it's been pretty boring. Is that safe to say the last couple of years?
I would say it's been pretty subpar.
Subpar, yeah. There's been three guys you want to own in Dynasty.
That's about it, yes.
And it's finally feeling like it's starting to open up, right? You look at the top rankings right now, you've got Travis Kelce is supposedly coming back, and, he's still going to be good for another season. You've got Laporta, you've got Kincaid, you've got T. McBee, Trey McBride, you've got Hawkinson when he gets back from his injury, you got Kyle Pitts still potentially, you got Mark Andrews, you've got so many guys that are in the top 10 that are interesting. Jake Ferguson, so many of these guys that we actually like and can be valuable contributors to fantasy. And we're going to talk about it here today, but we'll see if there's anybody that we think can make an instant impact and have a long-term impact on your roster as well. Before we get into that though, Dale, how are we doing today?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good. I'm really excited to be done with our first rookie rankings, like the 1.0 rankings and stuff like that. And I'm really excited to see these guys at the combine here, in a few weeks. It's actually starting to be really exciting. It's 2 weeks away, and then we got free agency in about a month. Mm-hmm. So, I know the dynasty fires kind of is kind of low for a lot of people, but really, this is a time where a lot of fun stuff's happening.
Oh, for sure. There's a lot of hype and hope and everything like that. And, we're going to have plenty of content over the next couple of weeks on all types of different content. I think we're going to be doing a rookie pick value discussion where we're going to go through the value of some of these rookie picks and kind of say, when should you sell them? Who should you be selling them for? If you're going for veterans, who would you be targeting? Things like that. And we're just going to go into the rookie picks that way. And again, we're going to go through a lot of different content this offseason. So make sure you guys follow the channel, the FF After Dark Twitter at FF After Dark, or the Dynasty After Dark YouTube channel. We're also available on Rumble, Spotify, Apple, Google, anywhere else the podcasts are found. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you hear all of our content right when it comes out. If you can also, while you're over there on this video or any others, leave a comment, leave a like. It just helps us with the algorithm, and it also helps us with feedback as well, because we want to hear from you guys and hear what your guys' thoughts are on all of our takes, because, that makes it fun. So make sure you're doing that. And then you can also find us on Twitter at TDC_Calvin and at Dynasty_Dale. So that said, let's jump into the number one guy here at the tight end position, and I don't think it's going to be a surprise for anybody.
Nope.
This guy's been slipping down mock drafts right now. A lot of people are kind of letting him fall to the mid-teens, which would be wild. A year ago, people were talking about him being a top 5 pick. Now he's, 15, 16, but that's going to be Brock Bowers with Georgia, the two-time national champion, Brock Bowers. And Dale and I were talking a little bit about these prospects before we jumped on here. Brock Bowers is in such another level compared to the other guys we're going to talk about today. It's not even fair. This dude is insane. Now, really quickly, we're going to go through a couple of his stats. He had 175 catches through college. I know this last year got cut a little bit short, but it was a historic pace. Like, the dude had 700 yards in 10 games for college, which is, a lot of these other guys didn't even get
That's
700
balling
yards.
out for a tight end
Right.
in college. Yeah, it is.
These other guys didn't even have 700 yards in a season, right? And he had 700 in a partial season. His rookie year, when he was a true freshman, he had 15 games, 56 catches for 882, 63 in his sophomore year for 942, 56 this last year for 714 again, 26 total touchdowns over those 3 years. And he even added a little bit on the rushing side, 19 rushes for almost 200 yards and 5 touchdowns there. Basically, the dude is just a weapon. He is a terrifying weapon. Now, you're going to see a lot of people talk about how he's smaller and everything, but before we get into that, let's hear your positives on Brock Bowers and how highly do you rate him compared to the existing guys in the league?
Well, I mean, for one, Brock Bowers, like he's this physical freak of a guy. Like he is sneakily fast. Like, honestly, I mean, we did get to see him at the Super Bowl a little bit with, like next to Gronk, and kind of see some of his size and see how big of a human being, Rob Gronkowski is.
Right.
That's beside the point.
He made Brock Bowers look small. A lot of
Bowers looked
people are
small. Yeah, he
memeing on
did.
that photo,
He
and
did.
that's on the
He
thumbnail.
did.
I got the auto trader.
Yes.
Brock Bowers on the thumbnail.
Yes. And I mean he's still, 6'3", 6'4", 240. He's still a big guy, he's
Right.
he's a physical freak. It's a thing that's going to be getting to him, like even though he is a very physical guy, like he's not consistent with like separating, like with like safeties and stuff like that. But I think that's going to take a little bit of time and a little bit of extra refinement. I kind of think we're being really picky with Bowers because we've seen him a lot.
Right. And he's been so dominant for so long, right?
Yes, he's been extremely dominant. I mean, personally, I think a lot is gonna do with his landing spot.
Yeah.
Honestly, and I feel pretty confident in saying that I know for me, like I would have in last year's draft, I would have taken Bowers first.
Over like Kincaid and Laporta and all those guys.
Over Kincaid, Laporta, and Michael Mayer.
Sure.
I would have taken Bowers over all those guys. So,
Right.
I mean, obviously today's a different story with Sam Laporta's historic season, but I honestly don't think Laporta's going to repeat by any
Right.
means, in my opinion.
Possible,
But
but
it's possible. It's possible, but I do think Bowers is probably going to be either the first, second target in an offense right away,
mhm.
and I think he's really going to prosper.
Yeah, now going back to some of his negatives, right?
Yep.
The size, he is smaller for a tight end, right? And 6'4", 240. You're like, man, that is big, right? But compared to
Yeah.
most tight ends, they're usually in the like 250 to 260 pound range. That's where they like to see those guys for blocking. Most of the smaller guys that are a little bit leaner like that, they're more of the move tight ends. They're the guys that are going to split out wide, the Travis Kelce type of archetype, where they're going to be used more as a pass catcher, less as a blocker, right? And I think that plays into Brock Bowers. That's why we've seen him so productive compared to some of these other guys. They don't really use him in Georgia the same way as most tight ends. He was more of a Kyle Pitts style of tight end coming out, right? But a little bit better than even Kyle Pitts was.
Yeah.
I do think that he has better pass blocking, run blocking than Kyle Pitts did coming out. So,
Absolutely. Yes.
it makes him a better prospect than Kyle Pitts. And
100%. Yes.
going back a couple of
it
years.
does. Well, and I think with Pitts that like we just got all fascinated by the potential with Pitts and
Right.
His size and kind of what he did his last year at Florida,
I mean,
but really
yeah.
but really we sh- we need to learn from that and to
Well, to be
with these
fair
tight
though,
ends.
Kyle Pitts,
Yeah,
man, I think everybody forgets how good Kyle Pitts was as a rookie.
sure.
He had over
Yes,
a
I
thousand
agree.
yards. He had
Yes, I
one
agree.
touchdown.
Yeah,
Sam Laporta,
yeah,
I think, had like 8 touchdowns this last year, and that's why
around
he
that. Yeah.
ended up as the wide receiver one or the tight end one on the year. But, Kyle Pitts, you go back to his rookie year, if he had 5, 6 touchdowns, he was going to be number 1 or number 2 overall. Like, he had again, I know Sam Laporta is really good. I'm not taking that away from him, but Kyle Pitts is right there too. Like, he did that on the field. And then, they move on from Matt Ryan. They go to Desmond Ridder and it just, Marcus Mariota. And Kyle Pitts got a little bit of a bad rap. He got injured as well, comes back from the injury this year. Everyone's talking about how he's not fully healthy. So people kind of downplay Kyle Pitts. I think Kyle Pitts has all of the potential that he was billed to have, right? It just hasn't worked out necessarily yet. And that's why I go back to Brock Bowers, and I think Brock Bowers is going to be a baller in the NFL. I think he's going to be very good year one. Now going into the rookie draft, right? And I'm gonna say I'm putting a bona fide stamp on the fact that Brock Bowers is going to be a Los Angeles Charger. You hear all these podcasts talking about how LA needs to add a weapon for Justin Herbert. Add a weapon, right? Harbaugh he would have seen this guy. They don't have a tight end. And say what you want about Quentin Johnston, they still have Keenan Allen and Quentin Johnston and Palmer as well, and Mike Williams. So they do not need a wide receiver as much as you guys want to move on from Quentin Johnston after a year. They do not need a wide receiver. They need a tight end. And again, you go back to what does a tight end do that a wide receiver typically doesn't? They also block, right? They can pass block and they can run block. And that's where Brock Bowers isn't going to be used to do that a ton, but I think he's going to be a Charger, man. So assuming that, right? Assuming that, if he goes to LA, where would you be drafting him in the first 5, 6, 7, 8 picks of a non-tight end premium league?
In a non-tight end premium, if we're looking at super flex, I'm still probably I I mean, I even think if he goes in the top 10 anywhere, I still think he's, a top 5 pick. I feel pretty comfortable with that,
Right.
after the I mean,
Like, are you taking
think
him or
I
Malik
think it's
Neighbors? That,
yeah, and
that's where it kind of comes down
that's
to.
kind of that's where it's splitting hairs. So,
Right.
I think if Bowers goes to LA compared to, like if Neighbors goes to, the Giants, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
I think I would be picking Bowers because obviously it's the quarterback situation. So,
Right.
I would feel tremendously better about that, and I would be comfortable picking him at 105.
Fair. And, I would definitely be happy with Brock Bowers over Rome Odunze as well. I like Rome a lot more than you do, but, he's kind of in that range. I would definitely be taking Marv over Bowers, but after that, man, you can flip a
Yeah,
coin for Neighbors and
yeah,
Bowers, and it all kind of comes down to team need. If you're desperate and you feel fine at tight end, go Neighbors. But, if you could use a difference maker, again, I think Brock Bowers is definitely someone that's going to be very good. So,
yes,
all
yes.
right, we'll stop talking about him again. He's kind of the far and away one that's going to be a standout day one. We have a few guys we're going to talk about here. We're not going to talk about them in too much depth because they're good, but again, it's not amazing. The last year's class was definitely better. Kincaid was a better prospect. I like Luke Musgraves a lot more than these guys as well. And I like Mayer and obviously Laporta as well a lot more than these guys. But we're going to talk about the next tier of 2 players. Jatavion Sanders from Texas, and then Jaheim Bell from Florida State. Was with South Carolina before that. But again, you look at the stats of these guys compared to Brock Bowers. Jatavion Sanders, the last 2 years, 99 catches, 1,300 yards, 7 touchdowns. So much different compared to Brock Bowers, who
Yeah.
outproduced that almost, in a season and a half. So it's crazy how much of a gap there is between Bowers and these guys. But Jatavion Sanders, I think he's benefiting a lot from Texas had an offensive explosion this last year, the last couple of years, and
Right.
they're really trying to renovate Texas and bring this team back. And Jatavion Sanders was a big piece of that, right? And I think he's a very good player. He's going to be probably a day 2 pick, if I had to guess. And then landing spot is going to be so dependent for him.
Yeah, and and I kind of view him as like Dalton Kincaid light in that like he's not really a blocker. He didn't really have a lot of experience with that because that's not the style of offense Texas ran last year. In the past few years, but like it's a big thing with him. Like he has strong soft hands. Like he's not afraid to kind of get a little physical if needed. He has pretty good speed. And I think he could really be effective in the slot, like kind of like how we're seeing, like Dalton Kincaid and Kyle and what we want to see from Kyle Pitts, and that kind of stuff. So, I think he could be good, but I think he needs a little bit of time to develop.
Yeah, he's definitely going to be used more as a blocker right away as well. Learning that side of it a little bit more, in my opinion.
He's going to have to.
He is a little bit bigger as well, 6'4", 256. So we'll see what the actual weight at the combine is, but he's a good player, and I think that he's someone definitely worth watching. Again, he's my number 2. If it wasn't for Brock Bowers, he'd be my number 1. I think there's a decent gap between him and Jaheim Bell, but Jaheim Bell has kind of made a little bit of a case for himself over the last couple of weeks. Jaheim Bell, again, Florida State this last year. It's tough because he had 500 yards, 39 catches for 500 yards. So only 2 touchdowns this last year. Not great. He's not really the touchdown threat that we'd love to see. Through 4 years in college, he only had 1,200 yards and 9 touchdowns. Again, you go back to Jatavion Sanders, he had that in 2 years, whereas it took a whole 4. Now, to be fair to him, I guess 3, because in 2020, his first year at South Carolina, he only had 1 catch for 29 yards. So scratch that one. You take that one out. And over 3 years, again, you see the definite tear down from Brock Bowers did what all of these guys. Brock Bowers has the stats of Jaheim Bell and Jatavion Sanders combined. Right?
I think the big difference is that Brock Bowers was used as the wide receiver one in that offense. I agree. And Bell wasn't. Like Bell again is like a Dalton Kincaid type guy. That's I think he's a little softer of a player than Sanders is personally. Sure. I think if he's not a blocker and he's just I don't think that's what he wants to do. He
scares me a little bit from that perspective because he's small.
He's a yak guy and he's smaller. Yeah. So, he's pretty speedy, like Bowers is, but I mean personally, like I have Cade Stover over him because I know Cade Stover is a physical guy, and I view him like I did Michael Mayer last year. Like he's gonna make the tough catches, and give you those extra yards. It's not gonna be sexy, it's not gonna be pretty to look at, but it's gonna be 3 to 5 catches a game, maybe 35 yards and a touchdown every now and again.
Sure. And that's where Jaheim Bell, he's more of a Evan Ingram type of player for me. Like he is tiny. Sure. He's 6'3", 230. So, everyone's saying that Brock Bowers is small. Jaheim Bell is even smaller, right? And that's where he's going to be drafted by a team that's going to use him more as a weapon, right? And that's good for fantasy, but it's also scary because you're not going to see as much play time, right? But if you make enough of a difference on the blocking side and you can kind of make your name known, but I think it's going to take him a little bit of time. And that's where, again, I think there's a little bit of a tier break again between Jatavion and him for me personally, but he definitely has that explosive after the catch type of play that you were talking about as well. I like his explosiveness a lot more than Jatavion Sanders. But I do think that Jatavion is a little bit more well-rounded than Jaheim Bell is personally. So, all right, you alluded to this player a little bit, and that is Cade Stover. Now, Cade Stover is he's a crazy prospect. He was a linebacker, right? Transition to tight end.
Yes, it was. Yep.
He played the last 2 years. Through his last 2 years, basically, he had 5 catches in 2021. His sophomore year, his second real year as a tight end. But since
Mhm.
then, he's had 82 catches for 1,000 yards, 10 touchdowns. A little bit more of a, you know, Mr. Reliable, I would say, than the
Yes,
other guys.
yes,
But he's not, in
yes.
my opinion, he's not as explosive, and he is a little bit older
Yeah.
as well.
And that's yes, but I think for me, if you're, I mean, I get it that you want to take shots on guys that, but like I know that he's going to be dependable, and
Sure.
I know with him and Bell, the draft capital is going to be huge,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
but like I know Cade Stover's a tough guy, and he's gonna be more NFL effective and
Sure.
valuable than I think Bell would be. And fun fact, like the commentators, a lot of a lot of times called Cade Stover Farmer Gronk. So
Right.
just
Right.
just 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 keep that in mind. Like this
Everybody's
guy's
baby
tough,
Gronk, man.
gritty. But I think for this guy, like I think he he wants to get hit, like he wants to be in the trenches, like that's what he wants to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean I value that in a football player that like I know is going to get the yardage, and I know is going to like fight in the contact and just be aggressive. So
Yeah, and yep, I think for him draft capital is going to be very, very important. But we'll
mhm,
see. And obviously playing for Ohio State is going to help out with some of your offensive numbers. They've always been a pretty good offensive team. So
yeah,
I just want to see where he gets drafted, but he's definitely someone to keep an eye on as we move forward
yes,
here. The combine is going to be very interesting for him because if he can show out really well at the combine, I think he'll make
mhm,
a very good name for himself over
yeah,
someone like a Jaheim Bell or a Jatavion Sanders. Like if you told me
yes,
in 3 months' time that he was the number 2 drafted tight end in this class, I wouldn't be shocked, right? So
no, no,
yeah, the last guy I wanted to talk about, and then we'll see if there's anybody else for you. But the last guy I wanted to just throw out there as another guy to keep an eye on is going to be Jared Wiley from TCU. Now, just
okay,
like Cade Stover, Jared Wiley is an older prospect, right?
mhm,
He's a fifth year player, started in 2019 with Texas, played 3 years there, and really didn't do much. He didn't get on the field very much. And through 3 years at Texas, he had 19 catches. Ever since then, he went to TCU, transferred over, had 71 catches for 765 yards, but he also had 12 touchdowns. Now, I think that that's impressive. A lot of the work was done this last year. He took a big step forward this last year compared to the year before. I think that he finally established himself in this offense this last year. 47 catches for 520 yards and 8 touchdowns. And I just think that he's someone to keep an eye on. I think he's a little bit more athletically gifted than people are kind of giving him credit for. And again, just
mhm,
like Cade Stover, the combine I think will be huge for Jared Wiley. If he can show out pretty well at the combine, he's going to be someone to keep an eye on. If he ends up getting third round draft capital, it's a name that you just want to keep on your radar. So,
yeah,
is there anybody
yeah,
else that
yeah,
you had
yeah.
on your list?
Um, so the last, I mean, I have two guys, but the guy that I really want to talk about is Ben Sano. He is from Kansas State.
Sure.
He's 6'4", about 250. Um, like he's a guy that that I felt really like really took a step forward with Will Howard last year.
Sure.
Like he had 48 catches, about 670 in the yardage, and he had 6 touchdowns. Like he's a pretty reliable guy. Um well, like he has soft hands. Yes, he does drop the ball sometimes, but like with him, like he does run some precise routes, which can be helpful, in the tight end position, when you're more in that short yardage stuff. So,
Sure.
I mean, again with this guy, it's, I mean, again with a lot of these guys, it's blocking and the top end speed. So, but for tight ends, you don't always necessarily worry about top end speed and stuff like that. But I think he could be a good asset. Somebody, a Michael Mayer type. That's a reliable guy. Like he's not going to do anything incredible, but he's going to be solid. Like even like a Jake Ferguson, for instance.
Yep. No,
So
yeah, I can see that. And
yeah,
again, for the tight end position, A lot of it's going to come down to draft capital. I do think that this is a little bit of a step down from last year's class in terms of depth.
Sure.
Obviously, Brock Bowers is number 1. After that, it's kind of debatable on who your number 2 to 4 is. And then there's a couple of guys just to keep your eye on, like we just talked about these last 2 guys. But a lot of it's going to come down to draft capital. But we wanted to get these guys' names in your ears. Now, outside of Brock Bowers, I don't think any of them are going to be a first-round pick. And this we'll kind of tie this up with a fantasy bow here. I think that Ja'Tavion Sanders is probably my odds-on favorite to be the number 2 drafted. He'll probably be a day 2 pick. I wouldn't be surprised if Stover or Bell end up being a day 2 pick as well. But from a fantasy perspective, especially if you're doing early rookie drafts, which I know some of you sickos do, but with landing spots unknown, I'm not taking any of these guys like Stover and Bell, even in a tight end premium. I'm probably not taking them until the 3rd round at the highest, maybe like mid to late 3rd round in a non-tight end premium. Tight end premium, maybe like the back end of the 2nd, early 3rd. Ja'Tavion Sanders, I'm probably comfortable in a tight end premium around the 2.6 mark. I think that's where all the running backs start to fall right now in a lot of mocks. And I would prefer to take a stab at some of these running backs in this class versus him, but I'd be willing to in a tight end premium around 2.6, somewhere in that range. Non-tight end premium, late 2nd is kind of where I'd be feeling these guys.
I agree. I agree with that.
So, yeah, we just wanted to give you guys an idea on these guys, and we can track their progress with you guys over the next couple months, see how they kind of rise and fall on the boards. And as all these interviews start to leak out and, oh, this guy did really well on this test, but, this guy's a moron behind the scenes or whatever, whatever it might be, we just want to get these guys out there to you guys early, and we'll see what happens with them in the draft. But it's coming up quick. We're only a couple months away. There's going to be a lot of football content. Again, let us know your thoughts on these rankings. If there's anybody else that we should check out for the tight end position, let us know what content you guys want to hear as well. Again, follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Spotify, Apple, Google, anywhere the podcasts are really found at Dynasty After Dark YouTube, or the podcast page at FF After Dark on Twitter, X. You can find myself at TDC_Calvin and Dale at Dynasty_Dale. Is there any last thoughts, Dale?
Send it on home.
All right. Well, let's get it out of here. Thank you guys so much for listening. And until next time, good night.
And we all got dreams. We all want things. But what you gonna do for it? How you gonna move for it? What you gonna be?